Good evening. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you. Thank you so much for joining us again for this moment of walking through the Word Bible class. Come on, take a few moments as you're getting logged in. Go ahead and like and share this broadcast. Thank you for getting logged on. We see that you are getting logged on with us to hang out with us for these next 25, 30 minutes of teaching. God bless you. Thank you so much for all of your prayers and all that you continue to do. Thank God for our intercessors. Thank you for your continuous effort in prayer as well. Grace and peace be multiplied unto each of you. God bless you, and thank you again for being a hill watcher. Thank you for being a hill watcher. Those of you who are getting logged in and getting settled in for this moment of teaching. Love you so much. Appreciate all that you continue to do to support ministry and to make ministry go. Thank God for Sunday morning as we are challenged to be effective in this area of ministry. I want to continue this teaching as we have started and embarked upon together as we're continuing to build this framework, this argument, or to develop this theological basis as it relates to not only the family, but the importance of our commitment to covenant, We invited you on last Wednesday to this dramatic illustration, this dramatic autobiography of Hosea, who God summons to him. He did not call him like he called the prophet Isaiah. He did not call him like he called the prophet Jeremiah. What an assignment and what a challenge that God gives unto Hosea. He says to him, look, I want you to marry a wife of whoredom. That's what I want you to do. He said that was the call, and we began to embark upon our time together as we looked at that as God summons him and challenged him and really into a covenant commitment. One of the highlights that I hope and pray that you did not miss is that sometimes God will use drastic measures to teach his principles to stubborn people who refuse to embrace the principles and the precepts of God. And so this is not the first time that we see God using drastic measures for the purpose of just looking back at that. You remember he spoke to the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah walked around naked for 3 years. He spoke to the prophet Isaiah. He walked around naked for 3 years. And so it's not unusual for God to use these drastic measures of challenging people into drastic areas of their lives so that his message can be made clear unto them, especially those who are resistant, those who are stubborn of his message, or those who don't get it at from a traditional level of teaching, from a traditional or what we deemed normal level of teaching. And God uses different measures to get his message across. And so when we started with you, he was challenging, or he declared and spoke the word of God, came unto Hosea, and he said to him, go marry this wife of whoredom, this woman of the night. Go and take unto her as your wife. It's important, people of God, to not only embrace this truth that we're sharing with you, but it's also significant because when you look at covenant and you look at what God has challenged the prophet to do, can you only imagine the chatter in the community? Can you only imagine the chatter around the town? Can you only imagine the chatter of people saying God calls one of his faithful servants, Hosea, and he tells him to go and get connected to a wife that shall be unfaithful unto him. And so can you imagine people having conversation and talking about that? Because the reality is a covenant, and when you understand the commitment to covenant, it's never about trying to protect your rep. It's now, we talked about that last week. You know, a lot of times people don't want to stay connected, don't maintain connections because they're trying to protect their reputation. But is that what covenant is really about? You trying to protect your reputation? No, it's not. It's about your commitment to the principles and the precepts of God and being able to embrace and to love all of mankind, being able to embrace and love all of mankind. And so the question that we want to ponder on tonight, the question that we want to kind of ponder on tonight, when you think about this marriage and you think about these two individuals getting connected in covenant already, his wife comes from a bad background. If we were looking at how we want to characterize whoredom, comes from this background. Here he is, a prophet of the Lord, and so God joins them together. And so the question becomes, what is God doing, and then what will be produced out of this covenant? What would be produced out of this covenant? What would come forth? Because it seems that, as to me, what is God trying to do? What is he trying to accomplish? What is he wanting to, what is the aim of it all? And so what would come out of this covenant? I want to suggest to you, according to biblical record, what's going to happen first is that there are some kids that are going to come. This is going to be a family that's going to come forth, and that's really kind of where I want to hang out, because I want to look at who's coming forth and the name of the individuals who shall come forth as a result of this covenant commitment, and what is God saying as a result of this covenant commitment. So Hosea chapter 1 verse number 3 says, and we've highlighted this, so he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, which conceived and bare him a son, I am stuck, perplexed, because the text does not say in chapter 3, verse number 3, that Hosea was necessarily the father, but the text says bear him a son. And so where it's perplexing for me, when you have a wife of this background, is Hosea the daddy, or is one of the many individuals that she's engaged with as the father? And so I am still challenged in my theological thought as it relates to who is the daddy, because text the verse number 3 says, so he went out and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, which conceived and bare him a son representing this child, the firstborn, this boy, who and bare him a son. The reference of him, we can make the assumption, while the text is silent, we can make the assumption that Hosea is the father, but we can also make the argument perhaps not, if we want to dig deeper, because of her background. We'll get back into that, and perhaps I can come up with a theological basis or argument, one side or another, on who is this baby's daddy. Verse number 4. And the Lord said unto him, call his name Jezreel. He says, call his name Jezreel. You understand, if you're like me, that there is significance in biblical names and why names were given, because biblical names were often depicted as one's character or as an individual, on who this person or how they behave. But with this child just being born, God has already decided what the child's name is going to be. Why is that? Because his name will have a message. Because again, what is the backdrop of what we're trying to accomplish tonight? We're trying to accomplish what would be produced out of this covenant. What will be produced out of this covenant? He says, he'll give his name Jezreel. He says, here's why. For yet a little while, I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. He says, the reason I want you to name him Jezreel is because a willful act of disobedience, Jehu, with a part of the tribe of Issachar, he says, because there was willful disobedience as it relates to what I wanted them to accomplish, he says, I am going to have to respond as a result of their disobedience. disobedience. And one of the ways that I'm going to respond as a result of their disobedience, I'm not going to remove my commitment to them. Watch this. I'm not going to remove my commitment to them. However, they are exposed anytime they're outside of my principles and anytime they're not walking in truthful and obedience unto me. He says, I have my expression for them. I still love them. I still care for them. But because they are outside of the parameters of safety, I cannot at this point protect them, because why? They have decided as a result of covenant and their willingness to be disobedient. He says, name this firstborn Jezreel, because that is one of the behaviors of Israel. That's one of their behaviors. They have been willfully, purposefully disobedient. Well, Pastor, that bothers me, because remember we talked about for so long that covenant is not based upon condition. We've discussed that, and so now you're saying they're willfully disobeyed. Well, I also suggested to you that when they responded to covenant, their commitment was to serve God in obedience as a result of God's covenant to them. That was their willful response. God didn't make them respond. They decided that, God, we're going to be in covenant with you. Why? Because God says here, I want to be in covenant with you. And so they respond with the confession or the willingness to be in covenant with him. And then all of a sudden, when things were changing or things didn't go the way they wanted to go, they began to disobey the voice of God. And so God gives them instructions. Here's what I want you to do. They decide they're going to do something different. He says, as a result, I'm going to allow the enemy to consume a certain part of the kingdom. Why? Because that part of the kingdom is not protected. Well, why aren't they protected? Because they're not in obedience. Can I suggest to you that when we walk in obedience with God, not only do we have the covenant of expression, but we also have the covenant of God's protection. We have the covenant of his protection, because there's no way that you can walk in the obedience of God and God not give you his divine protection. He says, name the firstborn Jezreel, because they have willfully disobeyed me, and therefore now here's the consequences. They are not protected. It's amazing. It's amazing, because we asked the question, what will come out of this? What will come out of this? Well, you've got a faithful prophet, and then you've got a woman with this particular background, and all of a sudden they're together. The text is suggesting that they're having kids together, and as a result of what is being produced, God says, I'm going to name it because of the illustration and the behavior, or the type of behavior that Israel is now demonstrating. I want them to see themselves in this illustration of this marriage. He says, name the child Jezreel, because they have willfully disobeyed me, and therefore they're at a place they are not protected. Watch if you will. Watch if you will. He said, I will cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. I'm going to put a pause on them. I'm going to put a pause to them. Why? I got to slow them down, because I tell them to do one thing, and they do something different. Verse number 5 suggests, and I'm moving, verse number 5 says, and shall come to pass that at the day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. He says, I'm not only going to put a stop to it, but check it out, their ability to fight back, I am going to cease as well. Because I don't want them to think that they can be disobedient even after I did not make them enter into covenant. They willfully entered into covenant. You do understand that we do that even as relates to marriage today. We don't live in a place where somebody forces us to be married. Nobody says, you got to get married. But if you don't get married right now, marriage is something we voluntarily do. And if you're going to voluntarily do, and then the expectations come based up on what you decided to do. Nobody made you. That's why it's always wise to make a good decision or a good choice on who you're deciding that you're going to be committed in covenant with all down the road. Why? Because you got to want to enjoy it even if they don't meet the conditions, even if it's a Gomer. Hosea's wife. Text says, and it shall come to pass, that at that day that it will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel, right in the midst of it all. And she conceived again. Yep, she conceived again. Right here in the text, verse number 6. And she conceived again. First time was a boy, this time a daughter. And God said unto him, call her name Laharama, for I will have no more mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. Wow. Whoa, what such a challenge. Look at coming out of this marriage, coming out of this covenant. What we're seeing is constant behavior that God is demonstrating to Israel, and it has to be more than just this type of behavior coming out of Israel. God has to be setting this up to do something magnificent, because after all, he is the one who's made the determination that he's going to be committed in the covenant relationship. So it has to be something more than, number one, Jezreel, who we're going to remove our protection from, and then Laharama, then all of a sudden now, no mercy, no love. Well, what is this all about? This came from a place of covenant commitment, and now you're saying you're removing mercy and love? Why? Why is this significant? Here's what it revolves around, people of God. Is that God wants us to see the commitment to covenant that provides his divine protection, his mercy, his love, covenant commitment. He wants us to see it. And then there are people who say, I want to be in covenant. We jump in. And why did we jump in? Because we heard that in this circle, that was love. And so we jump in. That was care. Oh, we jump in. And so we decide when we jump in, that's where we want it to be. And then when you decide this is where you want to be, then how do you benefit from where you are? How do you benefit from where you are? Because there's one thing, people of God, for a person to show their expression of love, but then there's another thing for a person to show their actions of love. My expression is, I love you. Guess what? That's my expression. My action of love will produce tangible things that I am showing forth my love. And so many times we like to hear the expression, or we like to talk about the expression jumping in, but we don't like to do the action. Because now that's the challenge. And so I think what God is doing is that he's getting ready to show us a side-by-side comparison. How he's determined to stay committed to covenant, and how we can be so inconsistent in our covenant. And so he does that by the production from this marriage, this covenant marriage, and what the marriage produces is based upon what the individuals in the marriage have determined what the standard or what should be. In this case, all of a sudden now, we got a daughter, and God says, check it out, no more mercy upon the house of Israel, but I utterly will take them away. In other words, I'm going to let the Syrian army come and remove them from their norm. Because it's all historical, one big record. I'm going to have the Assyrian army come and remove them from their norm. Here's what I want you to see. That out of this production of this covenant marriage, and while God has made some tough decisions because they decided to jump in, and then all of a sudden they jumped out, and they received the expression of love, of covenant, but now they are by themselves because they're not ready for the actions of covenant. And all of a sudden now, they've left themselves exposed. And covenant, a commitment to covenant, people of God, you got to understand, you can leave yourself exposed if you don't make the decision that this is what I'm going to stay committed to. In verse 7, seems to be oxymoron as I'm running. In verse 7, seems to be oxymoron. He says, but I will have mercy upon the house of Judah. He separates the kingdom. He separates the kingdom. Because you do understand when you study that, historically there's a southern kingdom, there's a northern kingdom. He separates the kingdom. He says, because I want to show you something, that I do know how to have mercy despite mess ups. I do know how to do that. But you've decided, I didn't, you decided you didn't want what I was giving you. I'm committed to what I said, but I can't commit if you won't stay still and you keep moving. Because here is the parameter of protection, but all of a sudden you want to be over here. Got to make sure, people of God, that you're working within the parameters of covenant. It's the same thing because we think for some reason parameters are negative, and they're not. It's good to have parameters. It's good to have them. It is good to have parameters. It's good to have a place that I'm not stepping outside of this. I don't know what your parameters are in your life, but perhaps you need to get some because it'll keep you away from dabbing in stuff that really doesn't matter. So he says, Judah, I will save them by the Lord their God. I will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen. Now she weaned Lorama, and she conceived and bare a son. Then said God, called his name daughter. We had boy, Jezreel, Lo Rahama. We had a daughter, and now we have a son again. And then this one right here blew me away. Lo Amani, he says, for you are not my people, and I will not be your God. Man, God, you done took me from not protecting me, not having mercy and love on me, and then all of a sudden you ain't even claiming me no more. I thought we was in covenant. I thought we were in true relationship. Well, if I don't give you these dramatic illustrations, if I don't show you how I can remain faithful, if I don't show you the behavior of unfaithful people, then it's possible you won't appreciate how faithful I can be, even when unfaithful people who said, I want to be in this circle and get out the circle. I could respond by not protecting them. I need you to hear me. I could respond by not showing them mercy and love. I could respond by not even claiming them. That's how I could respond, because their behavior warrants that response. But that behavior also is going to highlight my commitment to covenant. I could respond. And out of this marriage, this commitment to covenant is the behavior that Israel has demonstrated toward God. That's what we see. We see the behavior that Israel has demonstrated toward God, and they were supposed to be in covenant. How then will God respond to this behavior? He could respond by not giving them protection. He could respond by utterly destroying them. He could respond by not showing mercy or love. He could respond by saying, I ain't claiming you. That's how he could respond. But the question is, how would he respond? And I think it's important for you to take a few days to think about how God has responded even to you in your place of unfaithfulness. Because what we're really trying to drive is our commitment to covenant can never be based upon a bad behavior that was produced. Because ultimately, the commitment to covenant has to depict some type of change. Change has to take place in covenant. And if everybody walks away because of certain things happening, then covenant can't impact change because it doesn't have anybody to impact change with. How then? How will God respond? He says, I got covenant. I got it. I got commitment to covenant. I love you. He can't leave them now. He can't walk away now. Or could he? I don't know. Could he? How would he respond? But I want you to ponder on that until we get back together next week, because God has to respond. After he's shown this grand illustration, this grand level of unfaithfulness, and it's grand. Everything that this covenant produced practiced disobedience. Everything that this covenant produced, this covenant of marriage, male and female, Hosea and Gomer, it produced disobedience. Everything it produced willful disobedience unto God. How will God respond? I want to hang out with you next week as we talk about his response, because I'm eager to see. Because certainly, if covenant is without condition, certainly, I'm getting ready to get a new shake on life. Certainly it has to be that way. I will almost conclude, certainly God can't do me like that. Certainly, it has to be something more. God bless you. Listen, I love you, and thank you for hanging out with us. What has been, I know, approximately about 28, 27 minutes, but here's what we've got to do. You know, we're right in the midst of 100 days of giving. Thank you so much. You have been so consistent thus far. We want to maintain 100 days of giving. God knows we're determined. I am determined as a leader. We're going to get this stress off of all of us, and we've got this mortgage burning campaign. Where are we? We are 28. We are 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, and 40. Those are the envelopes that we need to fill. Those of you who are watching on the screen, we need $32. We need $34. We need $36. We need $38. We need $40. We need $42, and we need $44. Those are the envelopes that we're looking to fill starting tonight, and then starting on Sunday. So Wednesday and Sunday, here's what we need to do. We need to do 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, and 44. That's what we need to do. Will you help me as we continue this journey of 100 days of giving, looking toward burning our mortgage? Listen, we're from $650,000 to under $250,000 that we want to rid ourselves of a major debt, and so that we can do some other things well. And so that's what we're looking for. As you're on the screen and you're making that commitment, make those commitments now. And then on Sunday, whether it's doing curbside giving, whether it is you're going to put it in the Cash App it, whether you're going to give a fly, however you're going to do it. If you say you're going to do it on the screen, don't change your mind when we get off the screen. Don't change your mind when we get off the screen. Love you so much. Sister Baldry is coming with our announcements for tonight. Govern yourselves accordingly. As always, thank you for being a Hill watcher.
Thank you, Pastor Johnson, for the word on tonight. The Christian Education Ministry would like to announce, in addition to Sunday school, there will be a virtual youth Sunday school Zoom every Sunday at 10 a.m. Please check your text messages and social media outlets for the meeting ID and passcode. The adult Sunday school lesson will continue with our Sunday school conference call at 10 a.m. To receive our church text messages with upcoming information, please text The Hill to 844-594-5300. Remember, once you opt out or reply STOP, you must contact the administrative office or contact Sister Mariel Jones to get back in. Please join us for virtual-only intercessory prayer or Bible class on Wednesdays. Prayer will begin at 6:30 p.m. Please call the conference call line to join us for prayer. That number and access code is on our social media outlets and our Facebook page. Bible class will begin at 7 p.m. Please log in and we will see you there. The Baptist General State Convention Women's Retreat will be held March 24th through 26th, 2022. To receive your registration and hotel information, please see Lady J immediately following any worship service. Early registration should be mailed by January 31st, 2022. Come and celebrate Mount Calvary's 39+2 anniversary celebration. On Friday, February 18th, join us at 6:30 p.m. for a family movie here at the church. Then on Saturday, February 19th at 10 a.m., join us virtually for a Sip and Share, our African American read-in themed, a tribute to our ancestors. Please contact Sister Ellery or Minister Williams if you're interested in participating by February 5th for the read-in. On Sunday, February 20th, join us for morning worship at 11 a.m. Pastor Jerry Wilson from St. John Baptist Church will be our guest pastor. Our theme for the weekend is Committed to Covenant. We are asking each family and household to sow a seed of $100 for the weekend. To order Pastor Johnson's first book project, Looking Within, please go to laskevcjohnson.com, amazon.com, kobo.com, Barnes & Noble, or see Lady J during curbside giving. These are your weekly announcements. Please govern yourselves accordingly and have an amazing Wednesday.